Hello and welcome to Anna's Virtual Yoga Studio. The hips and pelvis are foundation for our skeletal structure. The way we sit and stand affects the way we carry our pelvis, and in turn affects the way we feel. Sometimes a slight asymmetry or a torque in the pelvic girdle affects the rest of the body. You may feel pain in the neck and shoulder, the source of which actually lies in the pelvis. The following sequence is meant to both strengthen and stretch this vital area of the body. Join me.
Begin by lying down with your knees bent, feet apart and pigeon-toed, and your knees together. This is constructive rest pose, and it allows you to really feel how your pelvis is today. Bring your hands to your belly, the hip points in front of your pelvis, and see if you can feel if the pelvis is level, or does one side feel a little heavier than the other. Travel with your awareness up the spine and notice if it correlates to any similar asymmetry in the shoulders. Does one shoulder come off the floor a little bit more than the other? Adjust your position that you feel as level as possible. And then begin to lengthen the exhale and deepen the inhale. This will help you relax and stay more present in your practice. Once you've relaxed, embrace both knees into chest. Rock a little side to side, do a few knee circles clockwise and counterclockwise, as well as egg beaters with the thigh bone, circling them away from each other and towards each other to increase some sensory stimulation from the pelvic girdle. Feel what you feel without any judgment. Allow your feet to also become active without being tense. Watch that your neck and shoulders are relaxed. If you need a little pillow under the head so that your head feels level with the rest of the spine, arrange for that. Notice how the right hip feels, how the left hip feels, how the sacrum feels. And then we'll begin with Apanasana. With the knees together into your chest and the hands on tops of the knees, on the inhale, bring the legs out away from you into tabletop, pointing the toes. And on the exhale, bring the knees into chest, flexing the toes. Coordinate breath and movement together. And then next time you bring your knees into tabletop, we will do one leg at a time. On the exhale, bringing the knee into chest while the other leg straightens and lowers down along the floor at any angle that feels good to you. Inhale into tabletop, exhale switch. You can roll your ankles, point and flex your feet to continue to increase sensory stimulation from the lower body. Our daily lives seldom give our hips the opportunity to experience full range of motion. So in our yoga practice or exercise regimens, we must take the opportunity to do that. Continue slowly marching in place for one last round, side to side. When you are done, embrace both knees back into chest for a moment to stretch the low back. And then you can put the feet down and step them wide apart, spreading the arms shoulder level at your sides for windshield wipers. Inhale in the center and exhale, release the knees in one direction while turning the head in the opposite. Inhale back to center and go side to side at your pace. Create a sense of languid resistance in your own body to this movement, as if you're moving through a viscous medium, like through honey, for example, just to increase more sensory input from your body into your nervous system. Think of these sensations as you enhance them as food for your nervous system. When you finish, embrace both knees back into chest for a moment. Softly pump them in and out. And then let's come into the butterfly position with the feet on the floor and together and the knees open apart, where we'll do some deep core activation. On the exhale, bringing the knees together. On the inhale, opening the knees back out. As you exhale and bring the knees together, maintain neutral pelvis as you pull up your pelvic floor and firm your lower abdomen in. And as you inhale and open the knees, release the pelvic floor and stretch the inner thighs. Continue at your pace with the exhalation, gradually engaging the pelvic floor. And with the inhalation, gradually releasing the pelvic floor. Make sure as you are doing this that you are not tensing in your gluteals, you're not tucking the pelvis under, that your low back maintains its neutral curve throughout. If this is going well and you feel the activation happening well, you can start adding a little bit of a hover of the feet off the floor, as long as you don't feel any sense of compression in the low back. So as you exhale, bring the knees together, press them into each other to engage inner thighs, pull up and zip up your core, and then hover the feet, maybe an inch no more, off the floor, just to bring a little bit of body weight into the equation. Make sure your shoulders stay relaxed and you are not experiencing any unnecessary tension elsewhere. Complete your last one, and again, embrace the knees into chest to give the low back a chance to recover. So this should really create a lot of body awareness in your pelvic girdle. Now we're ready for some detailed exploration of the hips. Come onto your side and bring your legs up into 90 degrees, into tabletop position. With your feet together, open and close the knees. Exhale to open, inhale to close. Support your head with the bottom arm and keep your pelvis level and stacked as you're doing this. And this is important. It doesn't matter how much you open the knees, as long as your pelvis stays stacked. Avoid leaning back. Pretend as if there is a wall behind you there, and instead of leaning back with your whole body and tilting the pelvis back, open just enough so that you can maintain the stacked position of the pelvis. The next variation is to lift the entire leg together with the foot and the shin, like you're opening a book. Exhale to lift, inhale to slowly close back down. The same instructions apply to keeping your pelvis stacked. As you open, make sure your body and your pelvis especially are not leaning back, that you're not trying to open wider and overcompensate by shifting in the pelvis. Stability is the name of the game here. If you begin to feel a little fatigue in the muscles of the hip, rest anytime. Bring your knees together, take a resting breath. And finally, we will do a little piston pump of the top leg. When you have recovered, bring it up again hip level. And on the inhale, bring it into chest. On the exhale, straighten it out at somewhat of an angle, pressing out and flexing the foot. Proceed at your pace until you feel a pretty good amount of muscle fatigue. The sensations are intense but not overwhelming. When you begin to approach the level of intensity that is becoming a little bit difficult, one last thing before you give up is move your leg back and forth. On the exhale, move it forward. On the inhale, move it back. At the same time, keeping your body really still and steady. To rest, bring the top leg down to the floor in front of you and straighten the bottom leg. While the top leg is resting, the bottom leg can do some lifts here as well. The inner thighs are very important to stability of the pelvic girdle, especially as we walk. And then we're going to switch sides. So press up or just roll over. And recreate the position on the other side with your head supported by the bottom arm and your legs at 90 degrees. Thighs to your torso at 90 degrees and shins to your thighs at 90 degrees. And proceed with the clamshell, opening the knees while the feet stay together. Now, through exploration and regular exercise like this, you may be able to discover that one side is stronger than the other. So I recommend, as you make this a regular part of your routine, to always begin on your weaker side, so that you work it first and you work it longer, and gradually you balance out the muscle development on both sides of your pelvis. When you are ready, proceed with the book, opening and closing, lifting the whole leg and foot together. Keep the pelvis level, remember. After a brief rest, we'll do the piston pumps on this side. So lifting the leg hip height, inhale, knee into chest, exhale, press and push out at an angle. Don't kick, don't use any momentum, slow down. Imagine as if there's a rubber band attached to your foot and you really have to pull in against it and press out against resistance. And then finally, when you feel a bit of fatigue, the finishing touch here is the leg swing. Exhale, bring the leg forward. Inhale, bring it back in line with the body without rocking the torso back and forth. Really use your core here to create a lot of stability in the pelvis and the torso while the leg is challenging that. When you are done, place the top knee on the floor in front of you, straighten the bottom leg, and do a few leg lifts with the bottom leg. Compare how the inner thigh feels on this side. Notice if you're able to lift that leg the same distance off the floor as you were able to do with the other. This may not be the most glamorous work, but it is very effective. And paying close attention on how you're going through the practice will help you understand how the habits of your daily life are affecting the muscle development in your pelvis, how it could be contributing to whatever imbalances you feel. When you finish, come onto your back and circle the knees around like egg beaters for a little while to distribute the circulation and the nourishment through the hip joints. Do another round of Apanasana, holding onto the knees. Inhale the legs out into tabletop. Exhale the knees into chest. And then take a little rest in constructive rest pose with the feet on the floor. And then let's transition onto the abdomen. Lie on your belly, support your head with your hands, and extend the legs behind you together. Here, as we are going to do leg lifts, it's important to keep the pelvis level on the floor. As you exhale and extend one leg back and out, notice if your pelvis shifts side to side, and really work hard on maintaining that pelvis level. Use your exhale and core activation nanosecond before you actually move the limb. It doesn't matter how high you lift. Pay attention to whether the hip points in front of your pelvis stay connected to the floor throughout. Notice, do you feel even distribution of effort from the buttock to the hamstring to the low back? The next variation is going to be rather challenging. On the inhale, we'll lift both legs up and spread them. On the exhale, we'll join the legs together again, as we lower them, we're going to zip up the abdomen. Inhale up and spread. Exhale together, lower, and pull your belly in, all the way up to the sternum. Inhale up and spread. Exhale, zip, and lower. In the beginning, you may wish to do just once or twice this particular variation because it is very hard, but it is excellent at creating stability in the sacroiliac joints. This is my number one tool for sacral instability. When you finish, transition back into child's pose. Release your hips towards the heels, bring your hands out in front. To release the contraction in the back body, we will inhale into table pose, just a small back bend, and exhale back into child's pose. And we'll repeat this a few times. A little dynamic release. Inhaling table with a back bend, exhaling child's pose. Use your core here as you exhale back into child's pose. Zip your belly up, 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 up to create more strength and stability around the pelvic structure. Next time you're in child's pose, stay there for a couple of breaths. Feel your back ribs expand as you inhale. And then let's transition on to the back again for some finishing touches on our practice. Again, embrace your knees into chest, give them a light little squeeze. And then we're ready for some stretching. Let's cross our right shin on top of the left knee and activating the foot. And without any pressure or assistance from the hands, we're going to move the knee like a butterfly wing. In on the inhale and down and out on the exhale. Keep some muscle energy going through the legs to protect the knee from any lateral forces. And just simply feel how the hips respond. Make sure that they're not sliding along, that you are really working the hip joint here. And then the next time you move your knee as far down and out as you are able without putting any pressure at all with your hands from the outside, you can do some simple point and flex of the foot and ankle rolls. To deepen the stretch, if you want, you can grab your left thigh, threading the right hand through, and guide the whole knot a little closer into chest, where you can do a little rocking side to side or some mini circles. Circle your hips around just to feel the right hip a little bit more. Once you finish, come back with the feet on the floor and switch sides. So now you're crossing your left shin on top of your right thigh, and with the left foot active, slowly butterfly the knee up and down. Inhale, release the stretch, exhale, and use your own muscles to move the knee down and away from your torso. Notice how this hip feels as compared to the other. Does it feel tighter? Does it feel more willing to go there? Keep your pelvis level. And then keep the knee in the down and away position as you do some ankle rolls or point and flex the foot here to increase the sensations. And optional again, if you want, you can grab your right thigh, Bring the knot a little closer into chest. You can use your left elbow to brace a little bit against the left thigh. And do a little rocking side to side, a little circling. And release. So that's a nice stretch to do after all the strengthening we've done. Again, embracing the knees into chest. This is our go-to compensation release, Apanasana. Inhale, knees away, pointing the toes. Exhale, knees back into chest, softly flexing the toes. And from Apanasana A, we're going to proceed into strengthening territory again with Apanasana B. Bring your hands to your hips and pressing the legs into each other, piston pump them out away from you on the inhale and back into chest on the exhale. All the while keeping the pelvis neutral. Make sure that when you move the knees out and away, you're not tilting the pelvis forward. And when you're moving the knees back into chest, you're not rounding the low back. It's not coming in towards the floor. Yeah, that makes it really challenging then. And then when you are done, rest with the feet together and the knees apart. Getting ready for the next final step. Hover your pelvis about an inch off the floor as you revisit the butterfly here. On the inhale, opening the knees. On the exhale, slowly closing them together. And then take your time to gradually decrease the amplitude of the movement. So each time you open the knees, you open them a little bit less. And then close them back down. And then as you open again, it's a little bit less. And close them back down. So the butterfly is fluttering its wings. A little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. Still hovering the pelvis. Just barely perceptible inch off the floor. Eventually, you will be barely moving the knees apart. When that happens, rest the pelvis back down and embrace the knees back into chest. Proceed with some egg beaters again, circling the knees around clockwise and counterclockwise. Feel how that affected the hip joints. How does the sacroiliac area feels here? Hold on to your knees, provide them support with your hands. And then place the feet back down. Into constructive rest pose. Step the feet apart, bring the knees together and rest your hand on your belly. It's important to rest the pelvis after all this work. And again, to assess how level do you feel it to be? What kind of relationship does the pelvis have with the shoulder girdle? Any imbalance in one has an effect on the other. So notice after working on your pelvis like this, releasing some tension, increasing circulation to it, strengthening and stretching, do your shoulders feel any different as well? Keep lengthening the exhale, and with each exhalation, release any tension still remaining in the belly. Make sure the exhale is as complete as possible. And maybe even add a short suspension of breath at the end of the exhale. Rest well. The effects of this practice are cumulative over time, and you can do this as often as every day for a little while to see how it is affecting you. And I thank you for joining me. Namaste.